Previously, Temu gave us some challenges. They challenged us first to test out their graffiti mops and markers, and they surprised the hell out of me, and evidently the other 15,000 of you guys who saw that test. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. And then they did something even crazier. They sent us over their liquid chrome paint formula to test out in a graffiti mop as well. And I can honestly say I've never been more surprised by a graffiti product in my life. You should definitely see what it looked like. And because Temu saw how shocked I was personally at their liquid chromes that they sell on their app, they challenged us to do something again. This time they decided to send us over some of their heavy staining inks. And that is why today we are going to be doing a full surface tagging test and a buff test on every surface that we're tagging on today to see if their heavy staining inks stand up to those in the graffiti market. We know they're cheaper, but are they better? We're gonna find out. So let's get this stuff unbagged so that we can start our tagging test. Okay, we are going to start with the smaller one here. What we have here is some paint medium. So essentially, for those of you who have built your own paint formulae, you would know that a paint consists of pigment as well as an agent and sometimes a binder. These are the agents basically. So you have a glossy clear and a matte clear. That's going to be something we use to sort of create some formulae of our own at some point. Now, for those of you who have built formulae yourself in the past, you're going to know that stuff like this ain't cheap, but these were quite a bit cheaper than any of your normal art store ones, if you will. A couple more pigments that I'm working with here. You guys have seen me unbox lots of pigments. You might get an update on that in the near future. Actually quite surprising, but when they're shipping inks, I guess they do sort of bubble wrap them, which is nice. Now, this is going to be one of the main things we are looking at here. Take a good look at this ink. It's a 200 ml bottle. These are the same size and all the graffiti brands sell. It's usually 200, 210 mils, and this is supposed to be a heavy permanence staining ink here. This one's in black. We got some in a couple different colors. This was only about $6. That's how cheap these are. Any kind of normal graffiti brand would be charging at least double that. But for you guys, it won't be $6, and I'll tell you why. Because Temu sent us over a bunch of this stuff today, they've also given you guys a pretty good gift, if I do say so myself, for those of you who are here to get it. Once again, they are offering $100 in free coupons to you guys. All you have to do is download the Temu app via the link in the description, and then on the app, you just have to go into the search bar and search my code DMQ8855. Once you download the Temu app, that'll get you $100 in free coupons. Since I know some of you guys couldn't get that to work last time for, you know, whatever technical reason was the issue, what I would suggest is, if you can, you can re-download the app to try and get it, or make a new account altogether. I did clarify with my contact, and she said that it is a code that should work for everyone, not just new users. But if you're having that issue, that's what I would try. But I was able to get something else for you guys this time, and this is for new users of the app. One more reason you might want to download it, make a new account. This ink that we're going to be testing out today, 90% off. So even though when I was getting it, it was, you know, $6 or whatever, you guys can get it now for 64 cents. That is legit the price offer that they sent over for you guys for this ink when I asked about it. So for 64 cents, that is the cheapest graffiti ink in the world right now that you can get. And that is why we're going to be testing that out to see if it's any good for you guys. Because at that price, if it is any good, oh, you can't go wrong, right? So let's get the rest of this stuff unboxed. Now this one here, same ink in the red, of course. Looking at this, I'm really interested to see what it turns out like, because this looks confusing. You don't usually see inks bubble like this, but we will see. And we did get a couple different kinds of inks here, just because, you know, we wanna really give this stuff a good test and find out which ones you guys should be picking up. So we got a red ink here. This one actually has a mixing ball in it. That's always a good sign. Oh my god, that smells terrible. Holy hell. I don't know what's in this stuff, but the box says shelf life 5 years. Yeah, I don't know about this one. And we did get a bigger size of this kind of thing as well. I think it's a different color. 250 grams, they're saying. And this one's a 99 gram bottle. And we did not stop there. This here is a 500 gram, I don't know why they're doing grams, full thing of ink here. We've got a little 50 milliliter bottle of ink here. I think it's one of these ones as well. It's hard to tell and their labeling is not exactly user-friendly, but it is more ink. A couple other improvements for you guys that we are gonna get set up hopefully soon. Some vacuum sealed sound panels. That's also what this is. The sound panels on their app are actually a much better price than you would get on Amazon. I did look around because, you know, sound panels are expensive, but I want to invest in you guys, get you guys a bit of better audio, hopefully, once I get those all put up. But that was a pack of 48 of those, and I think it was about $40, which was significantly better than any of the other ones I saw there. Got a couple drawing gloves. This is what they are. Basically, this replaces, if you've ever been drawing a sketch or something, you just put a piece of paper under your hand so that it's not smudging the pencil all over. This achieves that same thing. So these are sort of nice. This was less than $1, so I picked up a couple of them. I'm not the neatest person when it comes to my black book work, but I do like to try and keep it neat. Something else we needed to get replacements of was these, I believe these are 8mm chisel tips. Now, in case you're wondering what these go on, something like a cutter right here. This is that size of nib. We got 5 of those replacement nibs. Again, they were like less than $1 each. Much cheaper than you would get on any of your standard graffiti sites. So in any case, the stuff we're really gonna focus in on today is these inks here. So now that we've got these inks here in the studio, we're going to be filling up some mobs and markers that Temu had sent over from our previous videos, and we're going to be tagging up some subscribers' names and patrons' names who are in our Patreon crew. If you are a member of the Patreon crew, you get the exclusive monthly content over there. One of the extra perks of it also is your tag is on our hit-off list for every video we do, just like this one, where we're hitting names up. So if you did want to join, like I said, it's $3 a month right now. It does help support the channel a great deal, and you get the exclusive content over there each month. But we're going to be doing tags on some smooth surfaces and some rougher surfaces to really test the permanence of these and how good they are against the buff. First, we'll take a look at the light fastness, the viscosity, the opacity of these inks, and then after that, once we've done our tags on some smooth polyplastic and glass, then we're going to be tagging on unfinished polyplastics as well as finished wood. Why? Because we're going to let those tags settle in for at least a couple of days before we do our buff test. So let's fill some mobs up. I would not recommend using this indoors. Just to be clear. Oh my god, it smells absolutely terrible. Okay, so we started off with the black ink as well as the red ink too that came in that 99 gram container. And what's the first thing we all noticed here? Well, it's actually something that just I would notice here because I'm here, and it's that this stuff smells terrible, absolutely horrible. It's the red one. It's not so much this one, but I will say this with respect to the smell. Both of them do not smell the way that graffiti inks smell. So my guess is that these do not conform to, what is it, ASTM standards. I don't know what's in these, and their labels obviously do not tell you. But first thing I noticed when I started using these, holy, it would have been the exact same thing you guys saw. As we say on the channel here, the drippability of these off the charts, right? Every single letter of that rover tag, I tried to squeeze a little bit less and it still kept dripping. It's a very thin ink, but it's not thin in the homemade printer ink crap kind of way. It's thin, but it stays together. And we are seeing a fair bit of opacity there as well, which you should. It's a black ink. Inks aren't known to be the most opaque when you compare them to paints, obviously, but for a black ink, this is doing pretty well, actually. We started off on this unfinished polyplastic surface, and that's what's gonna be hardest to buff it on. And then after that, we moved down to our finished polyplastic. That's one of the smoothest surfaces you can get. That's why we're testing it there. And geez, the drips just flow there. Now for almost all of the tags on that smooth polyplastic surface, I didn't try and squeeze much at all because I knew I didn't need to, right? So even with a very thin layer that we're putting down, especially with that Sappho tag, totally opaque, no streaking, nothing like that. So I was really, really impressed with that, actually. A further test for that opacity is we did do a scuff and a raws tag over our sort of bit of that surface that's painted. Could not see anything through that at all. Now with that red formula, first off, my apologies, I put this in a 8mm chisel tip marker here, and I was hoping that it would be thin enough to travel through the nib. It does, but not as nicely as another kind of ink. This almost seems like it is a paint rather than an ink. Despite the opacity you're getting there, it's just I couldn't work up a good flow from the 8mm chisel tip. That being said, you're seeing a very vibrant red there, and it's vibrant in the way that, again, makes it seem like it is a paint. But yeah, I do have to say, overall, I did not expect the opacity to be this good, especially when we're working with something that's such a drippable formula. Usually you associate runniness with translucence, not in this case, which is nice to see. Especially for an ink that would cost you guys 64 cents if you pick it up. But because this is one of the harder surfaces for something to be buffed from, we did that one, and then we did our smooth surfaces there. The smooth surfaces are more just to see how the physics of this ink go. What is the full potential of those drips? Can the ink hold itself together, maintain those nice solid lines on that super smooth surface? And to answer that, yes, it did both of those things very, very well. But we do have a finished wood surface that we're going to be testing both of these on. It is a real wood. We are gonna try it when we do the buff test. The main one we're gonna wanna see for our buff test is the unfinished polyplastic there. We've had a few inks do well on that in the past, and a few do not so well in the past. So basically, if an ink is good, it'll be hard to buff from there. So we will see. Right now though, we're gonna get some stuff up on this finished wood surface. Well, there's nothing more fun than destroying some fine furniture, and that's what we've done here right now as we test this out on a nice, it's a very nice finished wood table. I do have to say, with writing on this wood surface, just the little bit of graininess that it has, the bit of roughness, is enough to sort of make it so you don't have too many drips if you want to write that way. So anything that's not a pristine, super smooth surface, you do have that ability to control the drips a lot more. That being said, this is still a runny ink. So I actually have no idea how this is going to do with respect to the buff, because, you know, wood in general, it soaks everything up, and the point of an ink is to set it into a surface and have it stained. That's the whole reason you want to be using an ink rather than a paint, if you want something to be really permanent, because inks seep into the surface whereas paints sit on top of the surface, right? That's one of of the main differences between inks and paints, but it's hard to tell what this is going to do because wood is wood, but also the finish on this table was actually fairly formidable. Guess we'll have to wait and see. If these inks can withstand a buff, then they are pretty much exactly what writers want to be using for your tagging purposes and, you know, whatever else it may be. So originally we're gonna wait just overnight, but you know what, I have stuff to do tomorrow. So we're gonna be waiting a couple days to do this buff test on all 4 surfaces here that we tested. We'll start from the easiest surfaces to buff and work our way to the hardest ones to buff. So in a couple minutes, we're gonna get out the buffing liquids for our next installment of our long lost mini series, Will It Buff? Next episode coming right up. Okay, so it's been 3 full days now, basically, since we put these tags up. So they've had a lot of time to set into the various surfaces we've put some tags up on. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a full buff test, and we're gonna work from the hardest surfaces to the easiest surfaces for these inks to stain. We're gonna start on our slippery surfaces here, the finished polyplastic, as well as our glass pane here that we tagged as well. Those 2 surfaces are pretty difficult for anything to set into, not that we haven't seen that on the channel here before. And after that, we'll finish with the unfinished polyplastic surface, which a lot of inks have ghosted on in the past when we've done buff tests with them, and of course the finished wood surface. Let's get into it. Okay, first things first, glass is historically pretty impossible for something to set into. That's just how it's built, but we are gonna try it and just see how this works out. Just gonna get some of this put down, we'll let it set in, and then let's see what's going on. We're using a paint and varnish stripper today. This one in particular, I have found works better on inks than paints, so that's why we're using it. In the meantime, I'm also going to put some of this on the scuff tag and the raws tag. Now that is on part of the painted finished polyplastic, and part of it's on the unpainted part. So we're gonna see if the paint there helps it stick or not. It should. Honestly, I'm not giving this much time to set in just because I have a feeling the results are gonna be pretty, yeah. Now I'll clean this up, but I think we all know what's gonna happen here. Glass is gonna glass, and it's pretty hard to get anything to ghost on that. We didn't expect this to stick around on glass, but just for confirmation. So I've given this a little bit of time to set in here on the scuff tag and the raws tag. You can see there's already some movement in that ink, but this is where it might get interesting. We may see the painted part of this finished surface hold on to some of the ink and maybe ghost a little bit. We'll see. Whoa. Not seeing much ghosting here at all. There is a little bit on this last portion of the F and the U on the scuff tag, but I don't know if that's really gonna stick around. Okay, so for the most part here, this is about what we expected. I think this is a super smooth finished polyplastic, but we are getting a little bit of ghosting on even this surface. So this could actually have a lot of potential. There's definitely some ghosting in the painted portion here. Hopefully you can see it in the white too. I know it looks a little different on camera, but there is something there. Let's get to the unfinished surfaces because that's really where this stuff is gonna shine, I think. We'll see. Well, I was just trying to apply some of the buffing material to this red stuff, and it's gone. God, I don't know what kind of stuff smells this bad and is this non-permanent. Jesus. We've let this rover tag set in, and that is with the ink right here that we're most interested in, to be honest. So let's see what it does. Whoa! Let's give it a little more here. Okay, I hope you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, because this is a very clear ghost, actually. Especially around the tops of these letters. I went over it, I think, 4 times now. What that automatically means to me is that this ink by itself is a lot better than even some of the Graffiti brand inks that are out there on the market. But just as one final test for this on a probably very harsh surface, let's see what it does on the wood. So, what is my honest opinion about these graffiti inks here? Well, this is what it comes down to. This stuff couldn't really stick around too much on slippery surfaces like glass, polyplastic. That's to be expected. But on a painted finished surface and on our unfinished polyplastic, we did get ghosting. So to sum it up, what do I think? Well, this is pretty much a stand-up ink in terms of what graffiti artists and especially graffiti writers are looking for in their tagging. The drippability, the opacity is quite good. And if you're getting something like a black ink, you're not really gonna have to worry about the light fastness as much as you would with another color besides black. In terms of the buffability, this isn't the world's most buff-proof ink or anything like that, but it does stand up pretty much as well as a lot of other graffiti inks on the market. But that's not the real superpower of this ink. What I can honestly say about this ink is this is the world's cheapest graffiti ink that you can get right now. Like I mentioned earlier, I was able to get you guys specifically a code for this for 90% off, which makes this 64 cents. And if you can get a stand-up graffiti ink that is going to enable you to do your graffiti tagging the way you would with any other ink for 64 cents, I'd be trying this out if I were you. Especially if you're a drip head and you love getting lots and lots of drips, this stuff excels at that. So if you want to pick some of the stuff, I would download the Temu app in the description and you can use my code, which is on screen right now, to claim $100 in free coupons. And there's a link specifically in the description to get this for 90% off. But just so you guys are aware, even top graffiti brands seem to have a lot of trouble making a truly permanent and unbuffable graffiti ink, not to mention an ink that isn't terrible with light fastness, aka fading in the sun. But if you want to see a video of one of the most permanent graffiti inks I have ever used, you're gonna want to check out the video on screen right now. That way you can have a side-by-side comparison between something like this, a normal, competent graffiti ink, and the one over there. I'll see you in that video over there soon. Peace.